But topic attention simple interest.
Simple interest. No, simple.
Yeah, no mensuration.
Mensuration. I'm not the mensuration, but not bad.
All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening. We are back for another session. Okay, so let's wait for some few people to join and then we can begin. Okay, let's wait for some few people to join us and then we can begin. So today's topic is on simple interest, a very simple concept in mathematics, simple interest. So we want to learn how to calculate the interest on loans and other things that you take. Okay, so we want to learn how to do that. Okay, so whilst we wait for people to join, let's write today's topic. Like I said, we are learning simple interest. Simple interest, how to calculate simple interest. That is the topic for today. And so if you join us, let us know from the country you are joining us from, or say hi in the live chat so that we know you are following us. Okay, so let's wait for a few more people to join before we start today's lesson. So I'm sending hi everyone. Welcome to the chat. If you are joining, let me know, and then we can begin very soon. So what we'll be doing is that we'll be looking at the concept of simple interest, and then we'll also be looking at the formula for calculating simple interest, what simple interest is, and then we'll be looking at some terminologies in simple interest. For instance, when we talk about the principal, what is the principal? When we talk about the interest rate, what is the interest rate? When we talk about the time, what is the time in regards with simple interest? So we'll be looking at simple interest and all these terminologies. We'll be looking at them, and then we'll look at the formula for calculating simple interest, and then some basic, some basic questions on simple interest. Okay, so if that is something that you are interested in, please get a pen, piece of paper, and then we will begin very shortly. Okay. Okay, so I'm back. All right. So simple interest. So we'll be looking at. Let me write some of the terminologies that we will be learning. We'll be looking at what we call the principal. Okay, then we'll be looking at the rate of interest. Rate of interest. Then we'll be looking at the time. Okay, and then we'll be looking at some basic calculations involving simple interest. So some practical questions. Some practical questions on simple interest. Okay. So I think at this point we can begin, and then we wait for others to join us along as we go. All right. So when we talk about simple interest, we are saying that this is a method to calculate the amount of interest charged on a sum of money at a given rate for a particular period of time, or for a given period of time. So basically, what we mean by simple interest is when you go and you borrow money, whoever is giving you the money is probably in business. Okay, so whether from uh, savings and interest, whether from bank or from an institution that has been licensed to give loans, right? So if you go to these people and you want some amount of money because you are in a you are in a situation and you need some amount of money to do something, right? So these people will give you the money, but when they give you the money, they are going to give you certain conditions and some timeline for you to pay this amount of money, and that is what uh, that those all form part of what we are calling simple interest, because the interest will be calculated on the money that you have borrowed, and then at the end of the day you are going to pay the amount you borrowed plus the interest. Now there are so many ways these organizations like the banks and co, there are so many ways they calculate their interest on your money. Some will use simple interest, some will use compound interest. It depends on the organization that you are working with. But one of the simplest one is the simple interest. One of the ways they get their interest, or they calculate their interest on your the money that you've borrowed from them, is what we call the simple interest, and that is what we are going to look at today. So for us to calculate the simple interest, we need to learn, or we need to know what we mean by the principal. When we talk about the principal, we need to understand what it means to say the principal. When we talk about the rate of interest, we need to know. When we talk about the time, we need to know what it is before we can proceed to go and solve any particular problem on simple interest. Now, when we talk about principal, this is the amount of money borrowed. Amount of money borrowed. So this is the amount of money that you borrowed from the organization or the bank. Okay, so the amount of money you borrowed becomes your principal. Now, when you borrow from the company, like I said, you are not going to pay the exact amount of money. Okay, so for instance, say you borrow, let's say $1,000. Okay, and then they will give you certain conditions. We'll be looking at that. But if you borrow $1,000 and you are expected to pay in, let's say, a year, 2 years, 3 years, or 6 months, or 3 months time, note that you are not going to pay the same $1,000 that you borrowed. You are going to pay some amount of money. Okay, that is what we call the interest. You're going to pay some extra amount of money on top of the 1,000, and that is what we are calling the simple interest. All right, so the rate of interest is basically the rate, okay, in percentage. It's always in percentage. Okay, this is the rate of interest. Okay, so the rate of interest per annum. Okay, this is the rate of interest per annum. So for instance, you hear people saying that if you're going for a loan, I've been given a loan of this amount of money at this particular rate, at 5%, at 10%, at 15%. Okay, or if I borrow you this amount of money in a year time, I expect a 15 or 20% interest rate on the amount of money that I'm borrowing to you, and that is what we are calling the rate of interest. It's a percentage, okay, of the amount that you borrow that will be paid on the principal for you to give to the one who has given you the money. Okay, and that is what we are calling the rate. Now, the time is basically just the period or the duration. I would say period or duration, or how long it will take for you to pay. Usually this is in years. Okay, so the duration for you to pay the amount of money that you have borrowed plus the interest is what we are calling the period. So now, once you know what the principal is, that is the amount of money you've borrowed from the organization for you to run your business, for you to pay your school fees, for you to invest in your business or your capital to start a business or whatever. Once you borrow that amount of money, there will be certain conditions given to you before you borrow that money. One of them will be the rate, and one of them will be the time. Are we okay? So once you have all this and you were told that it is simple interest, then you can calculate based on the formula the amount of money that you'll be paying at the end of the month. And that is what we are calling simple interest. Now, like I said, we have compound interest, we have other ways of calculating it, but the one we are looking at today is the basic one, which we are calling the simple interest. Now, when we talk about simple interest, the formula for calculating simple interest is very easy. It's just the product of the principal, the rate, and then the time. Okay, so it's the principal multiplied by the rate. The rate is always in percentage multiplied by the time. Okay, now because the rate is in percentage, this is actually principal multiplied by the rate. So the rate will be something over 100. That is, we are taking the percentage out multiplied by the time. Okay, which you can rewrite as basically the principal multiplied by the rate multiplied by time all over 100. Are you okay? In this case, it means that the rate over here is just the number you are given. So for instance, let's say this is 20%. Are you okay? So if you are going to use it in this particular formula, we only use 20 for the rate. We don't add the percentage or add 100 because the 100 is already at the bottom over here. But if we are going to use this one, then you use 20 divided by 100 in this case. But they are all the same, okay? So the formula for calculating simple interest is principal times rate times time all over 100. And the formula is what I have just written over here. So let me circle that for us. So this is the formula for calculating simple interest. It is principal times rate times time all over 100, and that is the formula for calculating simple interest. All right, so any question so far, or we can continue, or you have any suggestions for now, or you don't understand something you want me to take over before we proceed? Remember, we are doing simple interest, okay? We are doing simple interest. Right. So in the absence of any other question, what I will do is that since we have the formula, which is principal times rate times time all over 100, let's proceed and look at some questions on simple interest, okay? So for example, I'm going to use, let's assume that I borrowed this amount of money, which is $1,000 at 20%, okay? Let's say, and I'm supposed to pay within, let's say 2 years. Okay, so it's $1,000 at the rate of 20%, and I'll pay within 2 years. Okay, let me calculate the interest that I will pay at the end of the year. So that is the problem that we have. So let's look at that. So let me quickly write it in a way that we can see. So let me use my name. Samuel borrowed $1,000 at 20% rate uh, rate per annum for a period of 2 years. A period of 2 years. You are to calculate the interest at the end of the given time. Okay, so this is I calculate the total amount he has to pay. All right. So this is the question, a very simple question that I just came up with on the spot. So we have Samuel borrowed $1,000 at 20% rate per annum for a period of 2 years. We had to calculate the interest at the end of the 2 years, and then also calculate the amount of money that he has to pay. And that is the question that we are looking at today. All right, so let's proceed to look at the solution to this problem. So let me use this so that we can see. So solution. Right. So if we look at the problem, we realize that we have the principal, the amount of money that we are borrowing or we borrowed is $1,000. Okay. And then the rate that was given to us is the 20% in the question. So we have 20%. And then the time is 2 years, or the period that we were given is 2 years. So once I have my principal, my rate, my time, all that I'm left with is basic multiplication or substitution into the formula, and then I get my answer. That is all that this is about. So I have here simple interest is equal to principal multiplied by the rate multiplied by the time, all divided by 100, and that is the formula. So if I do the substitution, my principal is $1,000, so I'll put 1,000. multiplied by my rate, which is 20%, so I use 20, then multiplied by my time, which is 2 years, then all divided by 100. So this is the substitution that I have to do, right? Now, the question could have asked, calculate the interest at the end of each year, okay? So which means you have to calculate for the first year and then the second year and add the two, that will give you the total interest. But this one, they just say we should calculate the interest at the end of the 2 years, okay? So we'll go ahead and do that. Now, if you look at it, we have 1,000 here, we have 100 here. 100, we divide 1,000 10 times, so we have 10 left at the top here. 10 multiplied by 20 will give me 200, so we have 200 multiplied by the 2 over here, and that will give us a total of $400. Okay, so the interest at the end of the 2 years is $400. What it means is that when I borrowed $1,000 at the rate of 20% per annum for 2 years, okay, I'm supposed to pay in 2 years, I'm going to pay an interest of $400 on the amount of money that I borrowed. What it means is that this is my interest, which is the I part of the question. So I, which is the interest, is $400. Now the II, which is saying the total amount I need to pay. So the total amount I need to pay is the principal plus the interest. Okay, so this is the amount of money that I'm going to pay back to the bank for loaning me or lending me the money. Okay, so this is the principal, which is $1,000. Okay, then plus the interest, which is $400. Okay, and so at the end of the 2-year period, I'm going to pay $1,400, okay, to the bank. Okay, and this is how we calculate simple interest. This is very easy, straightforward. Don't need to rack your brain around it too much, because this is one of the easiest concept when it comes to mathematics. Okay, whether you are an art student or you are any other student, this is something that you can easily do. Okay, very simple, very easy, and very straightforward. Are we okay? All right, so we'll continue and look at another problem. Okay, and I'll write the question as we proceed. So let me choose my black as always. So we have here, Johnson's father had borrowed a personal loan of $1,000 from a bank at the rate of 5%. So what would be the interest for the first year, second year, third year, and 10 years? And then the amount, he has calculate the amount that has to be returned at the end of each year. All right, so we have Johnson's father had borrowed money. He borrowed a personal loan of $2,000 from the bank and the rate of interest was 5%, and the rate of interest was 5%. What would be the simple interest if he borrowed for I a year, I 2 years, I 3 years, IV 10 years, and then lastly, Vin. Calculate the amount he has to return at the end of each case. Calculate the amount returned at the end of each case, which is for I, and IV, as we can see. So this is the problem that we have. All right. Right. So let's look at the solution to this problem. So this problem is one of the easiest problems. So I'm going to proceed and write the solution to the problem. So let's go with this. So we write here our solution. So remember the question is saying that over here, before we look at that, Johnson father borrowed, so the principal, the amount that he borrowed was $2,000, okay, from the bank, and the interest rate was 5%, okay. They were very good to him, 5%. And then the duration that he borrowed it from for I was for a year, I for 2 years, I 3 years, and then for IV for 10 years, okay. So all right, so for I, the simple interest is equal to the principal multiplied by the rate multiplied by the time, all divided by 100, and then this is equal to, so this is equal to, we have the principal, which is 2,000, multiplied by the rate, which is 5, multiplied by the time. The time in the case of I is 1 year, so we have 1 year, all divided by 100. Are we okay? So the 100 over here, we'll cancel the 2 zeros over here. So we have 20 multiplied by 5 multiplied by 1. And 20 multiplied by 5 is 100. So we have $100 as the interest over here. Now the $100 is the interest on the amount of $2,000 that he borrowed for the first year. So the amount he has to pay, now will be the principal plus the interest, which is 2,000 plus 100, okay, which in this case will be 2,100, okay, as our answer for the first instance. Right, let's proceed to look at the second instance. So the interest for the second instance will also be the same formula, principal times rate times time, all divided by 100. And this will be equal to the principal is the same, which is the 2,000. The rate is also the same, but over here, the year is for 2 years. And then we divide by 100. All right, so over here, these 2 zeros will cancel this guy out. So we have 20 multiplied by 5, and that will give us 100. Okay, so 100 multiplied by 2 will give us 200. So we have $200 as the interest at the end of the second year. What it means is that the amount he has to pay at the end of the second year will be $2,000 plus $200, which is $2,200. That is the amount that he has to pay at the end of the second year. Okay, so we'll do the exact same thing for the third year. So for the third year, the simple interest will still be the same, which is the principal multiplied by the rate, and then the time all on 100. And then the calculation will still be the same, 2000 multiplied by 5 multiplied by 3, all divided by 100. These guys will cancel this. We have 100, then that 100 multiplied by 3, that will give us $300. Okay, so we can see that the interest every year is increasing by $100. So the amount he has to pay over here will be 2000 plus 300, which is $2,300. Are you okay? This is the amount that he has to pay at the end of the third year. Okay, that is, we are assuming if he borrowed for only 1 year, he will pay 2,100. If he borrowed for 2 years, he will pay 2,200. If he were to borrow for 3 years, he will pay 2,300. It doesn't mean he will pay 2,100 for the first year and then pay 2,200 for the second year. No, we are looking at 3 different instances. Are we okay? All right. So now let's look at the last instance, which is 10 years. Now, when it is 10 years, let me use the first instance over here as a case. When it is 10 years, it will be principal multiplied by rate by time all over 100. But then the time over here in this case will be 10 instead of just 1. It will be 10. Are we okay? So we have the 100 nullifying this. So we have now 20 multiplied by 5 multiplied by 10. Are we okay? So 20 multiplied by 5 is already 100. 100 multiplied by 10 will give us 1,000. Are we okay? So we have $1,000 over here. So which means that for the 10 years, the amount that he will pay will be $2,000 plus $1,000, and that will be $3,000. Are we okay? So it means that if he borrowed $2,000, or the amount of money that he borrowed, if it's for 10 years, he will pay half of it at the end of the 10 years. Okay, so it means if you were to take $500,000 at the end of the 10 years, you will pay $500,000 plus half of that, okay, which is $250,000 plus $500,000, which will be $750,000. Are we okay? All right, $750,000. All right, so this is the basic concept of simple interest. It's very easy to understand. Like I said, the formula is principal times rate times time all over 100, and that is all you need to know. The rest is just basic calculation and multiplication. Are you okay? All right, so let's have a look at some change of subject when it comes to simple interest. Okay, so like I said, we said that simple interest is equal to principal multiplied by the rate multiplied by the time all over 100. Now the question I want to ask is, what if the question says we should find the principal? For instance, the question has given us the interest, we were given the rate, we were given the time. How do we find the principal? Okay, so in this case, it means you have to make P the subject. This is very easy. It's just change of subject. The interest will have 1 as the denominator, then we cross multiply. So we'll now have principal multiplied by the rate multiplied by time, all multiplied by 1 is the same. And this will be equal to the interest multiplied by 100. Okay, let me use the multiplication sign here, multiplied by 100. Now, because we are finding the principal, over here we divide both sides by the rate and then the time, divide both sides by the rate and then the time. And so therefore, these guys will cancel this guy. Then we'll have our principal to be equal to the interest multiplied by 100 divided by the rate multiplied by the time. Now, the same way, if we were to find the time, okay, or the rate, so we have simple interest equals principal times rate times time all over 100. And then we are to find the rate. We'll do the exact same thing. We'll still cross multiply. Okay, so if we do that, we have principal multiplied by the rate multiplied by the time, and that will be equal to the interest multiplied by 100. And so therefore, because this time around we want the rate, we'll divide both sides by the principal and then the time. Here to principal and then the time. So the P will cancel P, the T will cancel T. So we'll have our rate, which is equal to the simple interest multiplied by 100 all over the principal multiplied by time. And the same way, if you want to find the time too will be equal to the simple interest multiplied by 100 all over the rate multiplied by the principal, or the principal multiplied by the rate. So these are the other deductions that we can get from the simple interest formula. It's very easy. So we can, from the formula itself, we can now deduce this formula for calculating the principal. We can use this for calculating the rate, and then we can use this for calculating the time. All this is from the actual formula: principal times rate times time all over 100. Are we okay? Now, mind you, this is the formula, but once you know how to do your change of subject, you can go in between here, here, and here easily. Or you just do your substitution in here. The unknown variable that you have, you maintain it, and then you solve your problem, and then you get your answer. So that is how we solve problems on simple interest, and this is the whole concept of simple interest. Like I said, you borrow an amount of money, then you'll be given certain conditions like the rate and then the time. So you use the formula principal multiplied by the rate multiplied by the time over 100 to find the amount that will be the interest on the principal that you have borrowed, and that will inform whether you taking that money is a good idea or not. Sometimes the rates can be crazy, right? For instance, if you've been given, let's say, a rate of 50% per annum, okay, it means well, depending on the investment that you are going to do and how confident you are, okay, it will not be advisable for that particular rate, because that's half the money. So you borrow $1,000, or in your currency you borrow $1,000, but at the end of the year you have to pay $1,500. Okay, so what if the business you're investing to, you are not able to double or triple the money for you to be able to pay the 1,500 out of it? Okay, and starting a business, when you're starting a business, it's not advisable for you to go for loans with these high interest rates. Okay, unless the business has a proven track record of being able to generate the consistent revenue that is significant enough for you to pay. If not, it's not advisable that you do that. All right, so guys, we'll go on a small break, and then when we are back, we'll continue with other questions. All right, guys. So let's have a look at one more example, and then we end today's stream over here. So I have a very simple question for us. Let's quickly look at it, and then we call the stream a success. Okay. All right. So we have a question here. If the interest, in this case, simple interest, okay, on a principal, on a principal, on a principal at the rate of 5% per annum for 10 years, for 10 years is $500. Okay, calculate the amount borrowed, or find the principal. Basically, let me just calculate the principal. Calculate the principal. Okay, so this is the question that we have. So let's look at the solution to this problem. So the question is saying that if the interest on the principal at the rate of 5%, okay, so we've been given the rate to be 5%. Just a minute. So we've been given the rate to be 5%, and then the time is 10 years. Okay, the time we've been given here is 10 years, and we've also been given the simple interest. They said that the simple interest is $500. This is the amount that was paid on top of the principal. Okay, so we have to calculate the principal itself. So like we already know, simple interest is equal to the product of the principal multiplied by the rate multiplied by the time, all over 100. And then in this case, we have been given everything apart from the principal. So if we make the principal the subject here, we cross multiply, we'll get principal multiplied by the rate multiplied by the time is equal to simple interest multiplied by 100. And so therefore from here, if I divide both sides by the rate and then the time, I will get my interest. Okay, so this is my formula. My formula now is principal is equal to the simple interest multiplied by 100 all over the rate multiplied by the time. All right, so now that I have this as my formula, let's go ahead and do the substitution and then find the amount that was the principal on top of which we are now paying the $500 per annum of 10 years. All right, so the principal is now equal to the interest here is 500. So we can see it over here. The interest is 500 multiplied by 100, all divided by the rate is 5%. So we have 5 multiplied by the time, which is 10. So we have 10 over here. So here, all that we have left over here is just to do some cancellation, right? We just need to cancel quite some things, okay? But either we cancel or we just multiply. So let's do some canceling. So 5 will go into 500, okay, 100 times. So we have 100 over here. 10 will go into 100 10 times. So I have 10, 100 multiplied by 10 left. So 100 multiplied by 10, and that will give me 1,000, okay, as the principal. And because the interest was given in dollars, it means that the principal was also in dollars, and so therefore it is $1,000. So it means that if you borrowed $1,000 from somebody, and the person has given you a 5% interest per annum or per year, and then it will take you 10 years to pay, then at the end of the 10 years, you pay an interest of 500 cedis on that principal. So the total amount you pay to the person is $1,500, but the interest alone is 500. Are you okay? And then the total amount you pay to the person is $1,500. All right, guys. So thank you so much for joining today's session. I know it was very simple, brief, and straightforward, but I really appreciate you guys for joining. Like we saw, it's just very simple calculations on simple interest, and then very straightforward. And thank you guys so much for joining, and I will see you tomorrow at same time, 7 o'clock GMT or 7:30 GMT. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay. All right. So love you guys so much, and then yeah, bye.